Well, I'm not sure exactly where I got cut off there, but the moral of the story is if you're going to have you're going to check out okay, shop cat's visiting. All right, buddy, go eat your food. Let's try this again. The moral of the story is with electrical problems, you don't always want to just be diligent in checking your power supply. You also want to be diligent in checking your ground. In my experience, 90% of electrical problems are ground related. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing I forgot to mention, and it's pretty important, is before you get into this, you may want to visit the Meyer Products website and download a free service manual for this unit. I see them on a certain auction site being sold for $20 every day. And all you have to do is point your browser to www.meyerproducts.com and you can download a free one for yourself. So just something you want to keep in mind. Like I said, we usually just toss these to the side and when we're ready to put it back together, we take the nuts off. We're going to do that now that I already showed you how to remove one. There's no reason to dilly-dally. Now, I should mention that the nylite washers are actually stuck on these two, which is a good thing, because on occasion, when you are able to remove just the nuts, and the nylite washer remains stuck on the cap, it wedges in between the stud and the cap. So when you go to remove the cap, you have a difficult time because you got the nylite washer wedged in between, sealing the stud like it's supposed to do. So, being that they came off with the studs clean, we should be able to get this cap off pretty easily. And again, we go back to our hammer and screwdriver method, because these units are all assembled with O-rings, like on the side plate, which I think I showed you here. But you got an O-ring seal right here, which we usually remove before we even put it to the side, but I'm just moving right along here for you. So, but this O-ring just comes right off. We toss that in the trash. The seal kit we're going to be using will have a new one, so we're just going to put this back over to the side. And now that, like I say, we have our studs out, go back to our hammer and screwdriver and catch it on the lip here and gently give it a little tap. Work our way around. And pop this loose. It's usually not too difficult to get them off. This one's just about free. Top wiper on this is pretty worn out, and like I mentioned before, the surface is pretty rough, so we're having a bit of a hard time removing it. And normally I put it to the side, but I'm trying to disassemble this in a particular order for you guys to see what's what. We'll see a little fluid film will help the situation here. usually these pop right off because the shaft is, the cylinder, the ram. Usually these pop right off because the ram itself is highly polished and chrome plated, so these things lift right off. You can see that this guy's should be replacing his lift ram because there's some heavy pitting here. I can lift this right out now, I guess, to show you. All right. Actually, the cylinder stayed in there. Here's the ram. This is called, well, I'll show you in a minute. Now, you can see, look at these pits where the chrome is gone. Every time this thing goes up and down, this is chewing this seal, the O-ring seal that's above here. So you have a brass piston, and you can see this is the packing, this rubber piece. And this guy this customer brought this pump in because it was leaking down. And you can see that the rubber is smeared right onto the washer. You see it's clearly defined here what's the rubber and what's the washer, which is the washer. And then here you can see the rubber smeared onto the washer. And again here. So that's the reason his unit wouldn't stay up. So now if we work this off, which is still pretty difficult. I may have to get a rag with a little greasy here. Let's see if paper towel's enough to do it. Okay. Now, let's set this back down here. Clean this off a little bit. You can see all that pitting. That's actually right where the wiper is. We're going to replace this ram here because the whole point of doing a rebuild is to keep everything sealed up nice and tight so no moisture gets in there. Every time this piston travels up and down, these are deep pits. Every time this travels up and down, raising and lowering the plow, these pits are filling with moisture and they're getting pulled back inside. The wiper wipes it somewhat, but moisture always works its way inside, and being that these are a little rough and you really can't polish them because the chrome plating is gone, it's going to chew up the seal. Wait a second, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But now, this sits in the cylinder, and this washer is commonly referred to as the grooves down washer. And you'll take note, I don't know if you can see it really clearly here, but there's 4 grooves, 1, 2, 3, 4, in this washer. And the reason for that is when this is sitting in the cylinder, any oil gets on top of this piston. As it travels up, that oil needs a place to go. So as it comes up and the oil is getting compressed, it leaks out through these 4 grooves, which are facing down when the unit's assembled, and it flows back into the reservoir. So they call it the grooves down washer. Probably, I'd say maybe 1 in 8 pumps that come in here to be rebuilt. I'll find this grooves down washer with the grooves facing up, which right away I know somebody was in there and they didn't know exactly what they were doing. Now again, there's nothing wrong with you working on your own pump. There's nothing wrong with you rebuilding your own pump or opening it up. I just suggest that you get yourself a manual and make sure you do it right. That's all. Between the manual that Meyer offers and this video, hopefully you'll be confident enough to tackle this task yourself, because it's nothing to be scared of as long as you have the basic tools that you need and a little bit of guidance, which you're getting right here today. So we're going to move back onto this later on when we change this packing. So going back to our cap, okay. Again, I've mentioned that everything on this is sealed with an O-ring. Well, here's the O-ring for the top cap. That comes in our seal kit. You can see you get quite a bit of corrosion above the O-ring. because that's open to the elements. And we clean that all off and make sure that the O-ring groove is clean before we reassemble the units. But hopefully you can get a view of that. All right. Now, we can show you with a cutaway view that we have up in the front of the shop. But let's just talk a little bit about this. Here is your seal. Okay, this is what seals the reservoir from the outside elements. People, it's a misconception. People seem to think that this seal here, which is caked with crud, is your seal. This is not your seal, this is a wiper. All that does is wipe the piston shaft off as it travels back down into the reservoir. It doesn't seal anything. We changed this. Usually there's enough room that you can slip a screwdriver between the bottom surface of this wiper and the top cap and just pop this right out. Now you can see, hopefully, let's clean this up a little bit for you again. This seal slash wiper has a tapered shape to it, and it's tapered towards the piston. It's tapered towards the lift ram. And that's so that, like I say, as the lift ram comes down, it wipes the debris off the ram. Generally speaking, when you install a wiper seal like this, it's because you're trying to keep oil in, or an oil seal with a taper like this, because you want to keep the oil in, so you would install it the opposite way. And I can't tell you how many times pumps have come in again with this seal installed backwards, because the misconception is that this is your seal, and you want to keep the oil inside, so you install it this way, which is wrong. This O-ring keeps the oil inside. This wipes the debris off the shaft. Okay, got that out of the way. Now, the other thing you may notice in here, it's pretty rusty and crusty, and probably chewed up. They come in various colors, but I believe you can see this blue piece of plastic in here, and this is a bushing. This is a guide bushing. What this bushing does is it holds the shaft, the lift ram, centered on the cap, so it can't walk one way or the other. It holds it right on center, and it's made out of nylon, I believe, so that it's a softer material and the ram, so that as the ram rides on the surface of this, the ram doesn't wear away. So that's that. Sometimes these have a cast gear on the inside of the cap, but this one I can't make any out. Let's try cleaning it up a little bit, see if there's any cast gear that we can see. It's actually, I found it. It's actually right in this area here, next to the fill hole. But I don't believe I can make out the year. But I can make out the symbol, which is almost like a starburst or sunburst symbol. Okay. Put our cap to the side. Now, I guess we can remove our cylinder. And boy, look at the glop built up on here. You really can't see half of it what I may do is actually take my gloves off and give you a look down inside. Excuse me. Clean this off. Not perfectly clean because we're going to go back to this later. Right now we're just getting most of the oil off. And this is actually a reinforcing washer on the top here that is removable. It's just sitting on there, and you can see the rust, which verifies that there's been quite a bit of water inside this unit. We'll clean the rust off this before we reassemble it and reinstall it, but it's a good indicator of what's been in the pump. Maybe we'll do this another way, since the lighting isn't the greatest here. What I'm going to do is turn this way and pour the glop out. See those glops? A lot of debris down in there. Junk. Now, underneath the base of this lift cylinder, there's a groove that's machined in here, and it's because this sits on an O-ring that seals the base of the lift cylinder. Oftentimes when a unit won't stay raised, it's the O-ring in the base. This O-ring, you can see it almost looks hairy around the inside edges. I don't know how clearly you can make it out, but this is from an E-47 unit that came in and it wouldn't stay up. And it was because this O-ring had exceeded its usable life. The unit was a 1990 and we just opened it up on, well, 3 days ago. So we replaced this. While we were at it, we honed the lift cylinder and replaced the packing cup on the lift ram, and works good as new. So, again, my favorite tool. We're going to go down inside of here and pick out the O-ring, which is covered in slop. And again, we just throw that in the trash, because our seal kit consists of nothing but O-rings. That's what's used to seal these units. Now, some guys say you take a strap wrench and put it on here, and you can twist this right off. Yeah, sometimes. We found that what we have to do is work at it, because these are dissimilar metals. This tank is steel, and this sump base is aluminum, and the two tend to weld themselves together over time. Sometimes pretty bad, sometimes not so bad. So we'll see. We don't want to damage this. We need this to remain perfectly circular. So we're just giving little wraps, and you can see we don't have this really tight in the vise, so it could actually move a little bit and absorb some of the blow. Unlike some of the other units, should I say the E-47, E-57 family of units, the sump casting actually overlaps quite far up into the tank, which leaves a lot of room for rust to form and corrosion. So it's usually a lot more difficult to get one of these off than it is to get one off of an E-47 or E-46 or E-57. And then we usually go back to our screwdriver. You can see we got this to open up a little bit. Not all the way around yet. It's starting to open up here. You can actually get the screwdriver in between, starting about here. So what we'll try to do on occasion is use the hammer and screwdriver and see if we can get this started, but we don't want to chew anything up too bad. So a combination of a few different methods, because like I say, we usually keep this round. We don't get too carried away with the mallet. But at the same time, we got to get this off. I've had customers ask me before, well, Chuck, do you really have to get it off? And I say, yeah. Because you know what? This corrosion is just going to keep going on. And it's never going to be easier to get it off. It's only going to be even more difficult. So now is the time to do it. Makes sense? I hope so. I'm using a taper of the screwdriver to raise the can. One of the reasons I'm doing this way is because, well, to be frank, a lot of you people out there aren't going to have a strap wrench handy. And at the same time, I mean, this is a pretty heavy wall, but I'm sure you've all crushed an oil filter a time or two, and you really don't want to distort this in any way. So by concentrating on working it around the base, where it's actually supported on the inside by the sump casting, the sump base itself, you got a better chance of getting it off without damaging it. Just move up to a larger screwdriver here. And what I'm doing is I'm twisting. And you can see now this is coming right off. Maybe I spoke too soon. Now it's coming off. And again, I can actually put some tension on it. Give it a little bump. You can actually see what I was talking about with that large amount of overlap. And you can also see the rust that forms here. As opposed to the lesser amount of rust that forms around the top. Because the distance from the O-ring at the top to the actual top of the top lip of this top cap is not very great, so neither is the rust. On the flip side, you have this big gap here, and well, it rusts up nice actually. So, and again, just like the top cap, we have our O-ring seal right here, and this seals the base of the can, fluid tank, whatever you want to refer to it. We call it the can. So we'll be changing that, so we put that in the trash. And, you know, we're going to go over this here and scrape off all this corrosion. This part here looks pretty clean, as you can see. Well, loosen our vise and give this a spin. You can see that the corrosion is pretty heavy on this backside. It looks pretty rusty. Well, the fact of the matter is this is cast aluminum and it doesn't rust. So that rust that you're seeing is more so from the steel can, and it's affixed itself to the white corrosion on this aluminum sump base. And it usually scrapes off pretty easily because it's aluminum and it's a soft metal. So, okay. I think I'm going to take the gloves off, shut the camera off for a second while I remove it from the tripod and give you guys a view down inside of here, because you would probably not believe the amount of gook and glop, for lack of a better term. So let's see if I can do this without being too jerky. Okay. Camera's off the tripod. Whoops. And we're going to take a look-see down in here. Maybe I need to turn on that light. And wow, you can see that there is just quite a bit of slop, for lack of a better term, right around the base of that cylinder. And that's one of the downfalls of having the drain over here. Let's see now if I can, you can see now how bad that is. And all that debris in there. And actually, if we look up towards the top, right above that black bolt, actually in between those two black bolts at the top, you'll see a round circle all the way in the back at the base of the casting. And in that circle is the cast year. So we'll have to clean that up, but from what I can see here, it's a 97. And the customer that purchased this unit said he had it installed in 99. So it being a 97 fits in pretty well with that scenario. So now we're going to go back over here to our tripod and reaffix the camera so we can continue. Let's make sure we have our angle fairly the same. All right. So normally what I'll do is, well, you know what? I'm going to have to pause for a moment here while I go put gloves on again. Okay, well. And here's Buddy the shop cat. He's back again. Hey, buddy. What's he doing? Huh? Besides wasting tape. Huh? Besides wasting tape, buddy. I got to do something here. Huh? I'm working. All right. So, we're not going to remove the pump just yet because there's a check valve in the back of it. With all this debris of this housing, it's going to be difficult for us to catch it. So, I'm going to turn this around. Now you can see the angle block. Buddy, go catch your mouse. Go catch your mouse. All right, so we're going to turn this down this way and reclamp it in the vise. And we're going to use our unbranded product here to get rid of a lot of this gunk. Now keep in mind, generally speaking, many of the solvents you might use to clean out a unit like this will damage the O-rings. So, in doing this, we know that we're going to be replacing every single O-ring that's in this unit. So we're really not going to harm anything by doing this. Because this won't harm the aluminum. If there's a solvent you want to use, we suggest that you make sure it's okay to use it on aluminum. Another problem you'll probably run into while you're rebuilding your unit is this paint flakes off very easily. And when you add solvent, it flakes off even easier. So you may want to plan on painting the unit when you're done with your rebuild. We don't, unless the customer requests it, because it's a labor-intensive and time-consuming process. But it's difficult to paint aluminum because to paint it properly you need to use a chromate primer, which is really nasty. So just something to keep in mind. If you use a regular primer, the paint's not going to stick very well. So now that we've got most of this junk out of here, you would not believe. Pour off some of this so you can actually see some of the solids that are in here. If you look in here, I mean, there's actually globs of solids. Just nasty. So it's a good thing that this customer brought this in when he did, because this thing is way overdue for being opened up. Look at that. Excuse me. And I might add that this customer does commercial plowing, so he needs this pump to be more reliable than the average guy doing his driveway. Not that the average guy doing his driveway doesn't want to have a reliable unit, but it's really important for this gentleman that this unit be reliable. So once again, I'm going to remove the camera from the tripod because I want you to be able to see inside now that we flushed out a bunch of that gunk. Okay. Now you can see the difference. You can actually see the machined grooves. There's actually two of them. See if I can hold this and do this at the same time. My trusty pick. Here is a top seat, for lack of a better word, machined into this base. And down here is a lower seat that's machined into this base. The reason for this is that there's two different size lift cylinders. There's the one that we removed, and then there's another one that's actually the equivalent. Let's see. I believe it's 1 3/4 diameter, which is the same as the E47. However, the parts are not interchangeable. So I think we're going to leave it at this, and we're going to have to call it a wrap for today because I need to charge this battery.